Have you ever stopped to think about why a man who has everything, genius, power, an entire nation under his command, still chooses to hide his face? It's not weakness, it's not shame. It's a silent declaration of war against a world that once judged him by his appearance before understanding what he was capable of doing. Victor Von Doom doesn't wear a mask because he needs to. He wears it because he decided that no human being, no god, no hero deserves to see the face of the man who will dominate everything. And the Avengers Doomsday trailer just gave us the biggest tease of that entire philosophy. Let's start from the beginning, because there's a lot happening in this trailer that most people completely missed. Doom's first appearance in the MCU isn't with an explosion, isn't with an army, isn't with a direct threat. It's with presence. He walks into a room where the greatest heroes in the world are gathered, and the silence he creates says more than any line of dialogue ever could. Think about it. Tony Stark walked into a room and everyone wanted to talk to him. Thor walked in and everyone looked with admiration. Thanos walked in and everyone felt fear. Doom walks in and everyone feels both things at the same time and has no idea what to do with that feeling. That's the level of character Marvel has finally brought to the screen. Now, about the mask. This isn't a costume detail. It's the psychological backbone of who Victor Von Doom actually is. In the comics, the official story is that Doom suffered an accident in the lab at State University that slightly disfigured his face. And here's the most fascinating part. He didn't even wait for it to heal. He had the mask forged before the wound had fully closed, which means the hot metal literally burned and pressed against still open flesh. Why? Because Victor couldn't bear to have an imperfect face in a world that had already tried to humiliate him once. The mask doesn't hide the monster. The mask is the armor of someone who refused to let the world have power over him. And the Avengers Doomsday trailer playing with that, showing fragments of the mask, that weathered metal texture, the eyes appearing behind the steel, is the film's visual language telling you, pay attention to what's underneath, not just what's on the surface. But here's the point that most analyses are completely ignoring. In the MCU, Doom's visual identity can't just be a faithful reproduction of the comics, it needs to work as cinematic language. And what the Russos did with the suit design in the trailer is surgical. The mask in the trailer has scars. It's not perfect. It has marks from previous battles, subtle dents, scratches that look intentional. That's not sloppy production, that's visual storytelling. They're saying this Doom has already been through a lot before arriving here, that he's not a rookie, that while the Avengers were busy saving the world from whatever threat Marvel kept throwing at them, Doom was building something in silence. Doom in the MCU doesn't come out of nowhere, he was already there. We just weren't paying attention. Be honest, did you actually expect Marvel to pull this off? After years of villains who were just smaller versions of the heroes, after years of threats that disappeared in a snap or a dramatic sacrifice, someone finally shows up who has no emotional expiration date. Someone who isn't here for a 3-film arc. Someone who exists as a permanent force in the universe. Doom isn't the villain of Doomsday. Doom is the beginning of a new era of the MCU, and the mask is the symbol of that. Let's talk about Robert Downey Jr. for a second, because it would be dishonest not to. The initial reaction when RDJ's return was announced was pure confusion. Wait, what? Tony Stark died. That was the most emotionally significant arc in the entire franchise. Undoing that would be a narrative catastrophe. But then came the confirmation. He's not coming back as Tony Stark. He's being Doom. And that's brilliant in a way that's going to live in the collective unconscious of pop culture for decades. Think about it. You're going to watch Avengers Doomsday with a double layer of emotion that no villain in cinema history has ever had the luxury of carrying. Because when you see that mask, you're going to remember the man underneath it. Not Victor Von Doom, but Tony Stark. And you're going to feel that uncomfortable feeling of not knowing exactly what you're feeling. It's grief and threat at the same time. It's familiarity and terror at the same time. The Russos understood that their greatest emotional weapon wasn't a perfect screenplay. It was the effective memory the audience had already built with this actor, and they decided to use that like a blade. Now, there's a scene in the trailer that needs to be discussed carefully. There's a moment where the mask appears fragmented, not destroyed, but as if you're looking at pieces of a broken mirror, each fragment reflecting a different version of the same face. That's not random editing, that's language. In the comics, Doom always had this thing with parallel versions, alternate realities where he made different choices. In some, he's a hero. In others, he's a sole survivor of a world he himself destroyed. In others, he wields the Infinity Gems with a discipline Thanos never had. The fragmentation of the mask in the trailer might be suggesting exactly that. The Doom we're going to see in Doomsday isn't a linear Doom with a clear origin. He's a Doom who has existed across multiple versions of reality and is now converging towards this specific moment, carrying the weight of all those histories. And if that's what the Russos are building, then Doomsday isn't just the greatest superhero film ever made. It's a work about the inevitability of certain people, about how some individuals, no matter what reality you place them in, always arrive at the same destination: absolute power. Okay, but let's be honest about the elephant in the room. People are worried, and the concerns are legitimate. The MCU went through a rough patch. Phase 4 and parts of 5 had serious problems with narrative consistency, characters without clear arcs, bets that didn't pay off. The audience's trust was genuinely shaken. So when a trailer like this shows up with a promise of this magnitude, the natural reaction is skepticism. But pay attention to what this trailer does differently from everything that came in the last 3 years. It doesn't try to be fun. There's no obligatory joke. Tom Holland doesn't pop up to relieve the tension. It has weight. It has silence where silence should be. It has music that isn't trying to tell you how to feel. It's creating an atmosphere where you feel alone in front of something bigger than you can understand. That's art direction with intention. That's Marvel saying, we understand where we went wrong. We're going back to what worked, but we're not copying the past. We're raising the standard. And Doom's mask is the clearest symbol of that. Let me tell you something that very few people know about this film's production. The Russos, Anthony and Joe, before a single line of screenplay, before any casting conversation, did one very specific thing. They dove deep into the Doom comic runs written by authors like Jonathan Hickman. And Hickman has a vision of Doom that's completely different from the generic villain who appeared in those poorly made earlier adaptations. In Hickman's universe, Doom isn't a megalomaniac who wants to dominate the world out of vanity. Doom is someone who genuinely believes, with solid evidence within the logic of the Marvel universe, that the world would be a better place under his control. Not because he's good, but because he's the only one with enough competence to do what needs to be done without hesitating. He's already been the most powerful god in the universe. He held the Infinity Gems, rebuilt the entire reality. And the first thing he did was try to create a world where people could live without the constant wars between heroes and villains. Did it work? Not the way he expected, but the intention was genuine. And that's what the Russos want to bring to the MCU. An antagonist you can't completely hate because you understand his logic. A man who is wrong in his methods but raises questions the heroes can't easily answer. Back to the trailer. There's a specific moment where the camera closes in on the mask and you can see the reflection of something, it looks like Earth, or a version of it, in flames. And the eyes behind the mask aren't angry. They carry something that looks almost like resignation. That's the emotional key to this character. Doom doesn't destroy out of hatred. Doom destroys because he believes destruction is the necessary step before building what he considers something better. It's the same logic as breaking a bone that healed wrong to reset it properly. It hurts, it's brutal, it might look like cruelty to someone watching from the outside, but in the mind of the person doing it, it's medicine. The problem is that Doom never asked anyone if they wanted the surgery. Now, about what to expect from the mask's arc in the film itself, there's a theory circulating, and I think it has real grounding, that at some point in Doomsday, we're going to see the mask removed. Not as a moment of defeat, but as a moment of choice. Doom, at some point in the film, will have the opportunity to show his face, and he'll choose not to. Not because he's afraid of being judged, but because the mask is no longer about hiding something. It's about identity. Victor Von Doom no longer exists. There is only Doom. And Doom doesn't need a face because Doom isn't a man. He's an idea. And ideas don't need a face to frighten. There's one more layer to all of this worth exploring. With RDJ wearing the mask, there's a beautiful narrative symmetry with Tony Stark. Tony Stark spends his entire life building masks, literally. The Iron Man armor was, in essence, a technological mask, a way of transforming a frightened man into something that appeared invincible. And in the end, when he finally removed all the armor, in Endgame, living in peace with Pepper and Morgan, that was exactly when the universe needed him back. Now RDJ returns wearing the one mask that can't be easily removed. It's not an armor, it's identity fused with metal. It's the exact inverse of Tony Stark. Stark wore armor to appear bigger than the fear he felt inside. Doom wears a mask because he no longer fears anything, and wants the world to feel the fear he burned out of himself. Two brilliant men, two geniuses, two characters built on the idea that intelligence is power, but one learned that vulnerability is strength, and the other decided that vulnerability is a weakness that needs to be cauterized. That tension, which exists because the same actor will inhabit both extremes of that philosophy, is the strongest argument any analysis can make for why Doomsday has the potential to be the greatest superhero film ever made. Let's close with what really matters. This trailer isn't selling an action film, it's selling a philosophical question disguised as a blockbuster. Doom's mask is the question. How far can a man go before he stops being human? And when he crosses that line, is it tragedy or evolution? The Avengers, throughout the entire franchise, were defined by their humanity they held on to even in the face of the impossible. Tony sacrificed because he loved. Steve fought because he believed. Natasha died because she chose. Doom does nothing out of love, faith, or sacrifice. Doom acts out of certainty. He doesn't sacrifice, he calculates. He doesn't believe, he knows. He doesn't love, he possesses. And against an adversary like that, the heroes can't simply be stronger. They need to be different. They need to prove that humanity, with all its flaws, fears, and contradictions, is more valuable than the cold efficiency of a faceless genius. That's what Doomsday is going to be about. It's not a battle of powers, it's a battle of philosophies. And the mask is where that battle begins. So here's the question that's going to stay with you after this video ends. If Doom is right, if the world truly would be safer, more organized, and less chaotic under the control of a superior mind that never hesitates, what exactly are the heroes defending when they fight against him?